What's going on, guys? Um, this question that I post in this video, is it sexist to not be a fan of women's combat sports in general, MMA or boxing? I asked this question, and it's in response to what we're told by the people who cover this fights, right? The journalists, the media, which all happen to be politically leaning far to the left. It's a fact. You guys can look up their political statements in addition to their coverage of the sports. We're told that if we don't support them and we're not a fan of them and we don't advocate for them, we are sexist, right? Now, this all comes up with the recent win of Heather Hardy. That's why I thought of this question. Nowhere does it mention the fact that she was on a Bellator card. She was like, oh, lack of coverage, lack of coverage. She fought somebody who was 4-6. Now, if a man beat somebody who was 4-6 in Bellator, I don't think anybody would even talk about it. I'm just being factually honest, right? Now, Heather Hardy is an accomplished boxer, but let's keep it real. She picked up boxing at age 20 and she's undefeated, and I mean, how many men, and I know Sergio Martinez is the outlier, right? But he was a professional cyclist and he is the outlier. How many men could pick up boxing at age 20 and be successful? And the reason is the sport is not as deep, right? And that's for many reasons, right? I could say it's typically, you could say they don't get into the sport. Women don't typically get into the sport. I don't really see a problem in as far as women's golf or tennis. They get a lot of coverage. They get a lot of accolades from people in general. And the truth is, and this is the thing that people don't honestly like to admit, is that there's anatomical differences between men and women, right? Now, in a sport that is very, from the casual aspect, is built upon knockouts, and that's MMA and boxing, right? Bone density, size frame, muscle dexterity, the ability to knock somebody out, hand size, is not as favorable biologically to men versus women. I could go into a whole medical testosterone levels. I mean, I could go into a whole tangent about the difference between sexes, but I don't need to justify that to the people who watch this channel. I think you guys understand that's a given. There are, again, outliers like Ann Wolfe, a few fighters that are outliers, of course. But if you watch women's combat sports, typically speaking, I know Amanda Nunes has knockout power in her boxing abilities. It's just not the same. It's not as technically proficient. It's not as aesthetically pleasing if you're being 100% honest with yourself. Right now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be a fan of it and support it. But when I've said things like in the past that when I'm paying money for like a UFC pay-per-view card or boxing pay-per-view card, I don't necessarily prefer to see some of the women's fights, the lower level women's fights on that card. Now, people freak out about that. Like, oh, you're sexist, whatever. I don't think when people are watching the NBA, right, at halftime or the second half of the game or right after, they watch a WNBA game. I mean, these people are very hypocritical, like, because they're trying to push an agenda and they're pretending that it's as good because they want to believe that it's something that in their journalistic integrity they want to push this or whatever. But I don't really see people pushing for the WNBA because the product's shit. People don't watch it. I'm sorry, they just don't watch it. It's not good. It's not the same, right? And the people who really don't support the people who really don't support women's combat sports, I would say, would be women in general, right? Because I know for the fact that all the women that I've spoke to personally, a few of them are supportive of it, but they're the ones who are the most sexist, the ones who are, oh, I don't like seeing that. Oh, I don't like, from a purely sexist standpoint, you would say, because it's weird to them, it's unnatural to them. And I'm not arguing that. If a young lady and a woman wants to go into combat sports, and we live in a free society, you should be able to do whatever you want to. But my thing is that we have to be honest about the lack of competition, the lack of technical proficiency, and the lack of overall quality of the sport, right? So, of the product, I would say. So, you could argue then, you go, oh, well, the free market MMA was successful MMA was successful with Ronda Rousey. I mean, Ronda Rousey was pushed purely based on sex, combined with feminist propaganda, right? And I say this, well, feminist propaganda. Ronda Rousey was telling us that she's a do-nothing bitch and that she don't need no man, all these other things. And the first thing she said when she was knocked out by Holly Holm, a humble woman, Holly Holm, somebody who actually should be a role model, was that she saw her man and she wanted to have babies. Now, I have no problem with that. That's her feelings, that's fine. But don't say that you would beat anybody in the world, that includes Floyd Mayweather, that she said that she beat Floyd Mayweather in a fight, or any MMA fighter. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And we get this people are this outright of, this whole like Conor McGregor, like, oh, he could beat Floyd. Like, we get angry at the casual fans, right? That it's like, it's ridiculous the fact that people think that Conor McGregor has a chance in the ring versus Floyd Mayweather in boxing. But you're sexist if you call bullshit on the fact that people think that like somebody at that same weight class would be competitive versus a man. It's just, you obviously have never competed in that sport. My whole thing is that I don't think that you're sexist if you don't support it. You support it. And it all depends on your reasoning. Like, my reason why I'm not so big on it, again, as I said, is it's the product is not as good. It's just not as enticing. Maybe one day it will get there, right? There are some high level women mixed martial artists now. Giovanni, I don't know how to pronounce her name. She's very good at striking. So as the sport continues, it will get more competitive and better. But again, why are we forced to see the growth of a product, the growth of a sport, because they take opportunities away from men who are already polished in that sport? And from my opinion, that more people want to see that, right? At least me personally, right? So I just don't think that people are being honest when they're talking about it. I think that a lot of people in the sports journalist world have political agendas, whether they actually believe them or not. Because believe it or not, a lot of people who pretend to be liberal and progressive, when you push them on certain issues, they don't give a fuck. But it's much easier to write and get attention when you talk about somebody's overcoming certain issues rather than just being good, right? Everybody has to overcome this and overcome this. But it's just winners. I mean, nobody likes Tom Brady. I mean, everybody should admire Tom Brady for his winning attitude. For his, he has every reason not to be motivated, but the fact that he wants to keep winning, to me, is a very admirable quality in a human being. But when they look at him, he's 6'5", good looking, married to Giselle, white, has all these qualities that people, he hit a home run, but he starts at third base. I mean, that's like not enticing. So overall, I just think that if you at least are honest about why you don't support or you're not a big fan of women's combat sports, I think that you're ridiculous if you're called sexist for it. I mean, there's ridiculous people that go out there and say, well, they should only fight if they're naked. I mean, that's like ridiculous, and obviously I don't support those type of statements. But again, I don't think that you're sexist if you don't support or at least don't have the time to support the birth and the growing of an inferior product. That's it. That's all I have to say. Make more videos. Thank you guys.